Let's start with a hard truth. Walking is great for your heart, for your mind, even for your dog. But if you think walking alone is going to save your muscles as you age, science says otherwise. You see, after age 30, most of us start losing muscle about 1% a year. By 60, that's up to a third of our lean mass gone. This silent epidemic has a name: sarcopenia. And it's not just about getting weaker, it's about losing independence, mobility, and metabolic health. Now here's the kicker. We've been told to just keep moving, but not all movement is created equal. Recent studies show that 2 simple home exercises done in your living room with no fancy equipment can reverse muscle loss, boost strength, and even improve longevity. So today, I want to show you how to forget the treadmill, skip the excuses, and use your own body as the best gym you'll ever, because the science is clear. If you want to fight aging, you don't need to walk more, you need to train smarter. Let me start with a confession. I love walking. I walk every day. It clears the mind, gets the blood flowing, and gives you time to think or to not think, which is sometimes even better. Walking is good for your heart, your brain, and your mood. But here's the problem. Walking won't save your muscles. And when it comes to aging well, keeping your muscle is everything. For decades, we've been told that the secret to staying healthy is to just keep moving. Doctors prescribe 10,000 steps like it's a magic pill. Fitness trackers have turned it into a religion. You get that satisfying buzz on your wrist, and you think, great, I'm doing everything right. But the data, the cold, hard, uncomfortable science says otherwise. Walking alone isn't enough to stop the slow, steady erosion of your muscle tissue. Why? Because walking is what physiologists call aerobic activity. It trains your endurance systems, your heart, lungs, and mitochondria, but it doesn't stress your muscles enough to force them to adapt. And that adaptation is key. Muscles grow only when they're challenged beyond their comfort zone. Think about it. When you walk, your body says, okay, I know how to do this. There's no signal to get stronger, no reason for your body to build more muscle fibers or repair damaged ones. The stimulus simply isn't there. Now don't misunderstand me. I'm not telling you to stop walking. Walking is wonderful. But it's not medicine for sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle that creeps up on all of us. By age 30, your muscle mass starts to decline. By 50, the pace picks up. By 70, if you've done nothing to resist it, you've lost up to 40% of your muscle. And when that happens, everything else starts to crumble. Balance, metabolism, energy, even mood. You can't walk your way out of that. Here's the irony. We often think of muscles as aesthetic, something for athletes or bodybuilders, but your muscles are actually your largest endocrine. They release signaling molecules called myokines that talk to your liver, your pancreas, your brain. They regulate blood sugar, inflammation, and even immune function. Lose muscle and you lose your metabolic stability. That's not vanity, that's biology. In one landmark study published in the Journal of Gerontology, researchers compared older adults who walked regularly with those who performed resistance exercises just twice a week. The walkers improved their cardiovascular endurance, sure, but their lean muscle mass didn't budge. The lifters, on the other hand, increased strength by nearly 30% and improved their insulin sensitivity by 25%. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between walking into your 80s upright and confident or hunched over and frail. Let's also talk about energy balance. Walking burns calories, about 100 per mile, but when you stop, so does the burn. Muscle, on the other hand, is metabolically active. It's like having a little engine running 24/7, even when you're sitting on the couch. Every pound of muscle you add increases your resting metabolism. That means your body burns more energy even at rest. So if your goal is to control weight, build resilience, and age gracefully, the long-term investment in muscle pays far better dividends than endless steps on the treadmill. And here's the kicker. Most of us believe we're active because we walk. We take the stairs, park farther away, maybe do a light jog on weekends. But the average person spends more than 10 hours a day sitting. Our muscles aren't being challenged in any meaningful way. We've built a lifestyle of motion without effort. And effort, that strain, that resistance is what tells your body, hey, I still need this muscle. Without that message, your body does what it always does. It optimizes for efficiency. It gets rid of what it doesn't use. And that means your muscle disappears, slowly but surely. The takeaway is simple but profound. Movement is not the same as muscle building. Walking keeps you alive. Strength training keeps you capable. They're both important, but they're not interchangeable. If you want to age with vitality, if you want to keep your independence, your metabolism, your balance, you need to do more than walk. You need to lift, push, pull, and challenge your body. You need to send a clear signal that muscle matters. So yes, walk your dog, stroll through the park, enjoy that sunrise, but don't let walking be the only thing you do. Because when it comes to fighting sarcopenia, walking may keep your heart beating, but it won't keep your body strong. And the science couldn't be clearer. The difference between surviving and thriving as you age isn't how far you walk, it's how much muscle you keep. Let me ask you something. If I told you there was a disease that affects nearly everyone over 40, makes you weaker every year, raises your risk of diabetes, falls, fractures, and even death, would you want to know about it? Of course you would. But here's the thing, you've probably never even heard of it. It's called sarcopenia, and it's one of the most ignored, underdiagnosed, and underestimated conditions of our time. Now, sarcopenia isn't some mysterious virus or genetic curse. It's what happens when your muscles slowly waste away with age. The word comes from the Greek sarx, meaning flesh, and penia, meaning loss. Literally, poverty of flesh. Sounds dramatic, but it's accurate. After about age 30, if you're not actively doing something to prevent it, you start losing roughly 1% of your muscle mass each year. That may not sound like much, but compounded over decades, and by 70, you can lose up to half of your strength. Half. What's frightening is how silently it happens. You don't wake up one day and realize, yes, my muscles are melting. It creeps up on you. One day you notice that climbing stairs leaves you winded. Carrying groceries feels heavier. You avoid kneeling because it's harder to get back up. These are the early warning signs of a muscle system in decline, but most people chalk it up to just getting older. That's the lie we've been sold, that weakness, fragility, and fatigue are inevitable. They're not, they're symptoms of neglect. See, sarcopenia isn't just about losing strength, it's about losing function. Muscles aren't only for movement, they're your body's metabolic command center. Every muscle contraction sends signals that regulate blood sugar, fat burning, and even inflammation. When you lose muscle, your metabolism slows, your insulin resistance rises, and fat starts creeping in where muscle used to be. This isn't just a cosmetic problem, it's a metabolic one. Sarcopenia is one of the root causes of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and frailty in older adults. It's the hidden domino that starts a cascade of chronic disease. Now you might be thinking, well, I'm not elderly yet. I'll deal with that later. But here's the cruel irony. Sarcopenia doesn't wait until you retire. It begins in your 30s, accelerates in your 50s, and by your 60s, you're fighting an uphill battle. The earlier you start losing muscle, the harder it becomes to rebuild it. This is why prevention isn't optional. It's essential. You can't turn back the clock, but you can slow it down. The data are crystal clear. A study published in The Lancet showed that people with the lowest muscle mass had the highest mortality risk, even when accounting for body weight. Another in the American Journal of Medicine found that muscle loss is a stronger predictor of premature death than obesity itself. Let that sink in. Having low muscle is deadlier than being overweight. We talk endlessly about fat, cholesterol, and calories, but barely whisper about muscle. That's like focusing on the smoke while ignoring the fire. Part of the reason sarcopenia stays hidden is because it doesn't show up on standard medical tests. Your doctor might check your blood pressure, your cholesterol, maybe your blood sugar, but how often do they test your grip strength or measure your muscle mass? Almost never, and yet grip strength is one of the best predictors of overall health and longevity. In fact, in one long-term study, weaker grip strength correlated with a higher risk of heart disease, stroke, and early death. Your muscles, quite literally, are your life insurance policy. But let's be honest, we've built a society that encourages sarcopenia. We sit at desks all day. We drive instead of walk. We watch instead of do. Even our diets don't help. Most people eat far too little protein, and the protein they do eat often comes in highly processed, low-quality forms. Combine that with chronic stress, poor sleep, and the ever-present lure of convenience, and you've got a perfect recipe for muscle decay. Here's the good news. Sarcopenia isn't inevitable, it's reversible. If you take it seriously, the solution isn't complicated, but it does require effort. Resistance training, protein-rich diets, and consistency can literally rebuild lost muscle and reignite your metabolism. Studies show that even people in their 80s and 90s can regain strength and mobility through simple body weight or resistance exercises. The body is remarkably resilient when given the right signal. You still need this muscle. So why don't more people know about it? Because there's no drug for sarcopenia, no pill, no quick fix, no profit margin. The cure is movement and nutrition. Two things you can't bottle and sell at the pharmacy. But if we reframed muscle as medicine, which it is, maybe more people would take it seriously. The truth is, aging doesn't make you weak. Neglect does. Sarcopenia is not the natural course of life. It's the consequence of inaction. And once you understand that, you have power, the power to move differently, to eat with purpose, to train for the life you want, not just the years you have left, because muscle isn't just about looking strong, it's about staying alive, staying capable, and staying you. Now, I can already hear the excuses forming, but Dr. Lustig, I don't have time for the gym, or I don't have equipment, or my favorite, I'm too old for all that. Let me stop you right there. You don't need a gym. You don't need weights. You don't even need much time. What you do need is gravity and a little bit of willingness to push against it. Because the truth is, your body already comes equipped with the most sophisticated resistance machine ever built. Let's talk science for a moment. Researchers have spent decades studying which types of movement most effectively build and preserve muscle mass, particularly as we age. The verdict? It's not endless cardio, and it's not fancy machines. It's simple, compound movements that recruit multiple muscle groups and trigger a hormonal cascade for growth and repair. And believe it or not, just 2 exercises done consistently at home can reverse the trajectory of muscle loss and fight off sarcopenia, the squat and the push-up. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, "That's it?" Let's unpack why these 2 movements are so powerful. The squat is the king of functional exercises. Every time you stand up from a chair, get out of bed, or bend down to pick something up, you're performing a version of a squat. It engages the largest muscles in your body, your quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes, the same muscles that are first to deteriorate with age. And here's the beauty. Squatting doesn't just build strength. It restores your ability to move with confidence. Studies published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research have shown that older adults who perform squats just 3 times per week significantly improve lower body strength, balance, and even bone density. In one 12-week trial, participants increased their walking speed and stair climbing power, everyday movements that predict independence. But the squat does more than strengthen legs. When performed properly, it activates your core, stabilizes your spine, and increases testosterone and growth hormone, both of which decline with age and contribute to sarcopenia. You don't need a barbell or weights. Start by standing tall, feet shoulder width apart, and slowly lower yourself as if sitting in an invisible chair. Go as low as you can while keeping your heels down and your chest lifted. Then rise back up with control. That's 1 rep. Do 10. Rest. Do another 10. If that's easy, hold a backpack filled with books or water bottles. The key is consistency, not perfection. Now, the second exercise, the humble push-up. It's been around for centuries for a reason. It works. Push-ups train your chest, shoulders, arms, and core all at once. They also strengthen the stabilizing muscles that protect your joints and improve posture. Remember, sarcopenia doesn't just steal your strength, it collapses your frame. You start to slouch, your shoulders roll forward, and your chest caves in. The push-up reverses that by retraining your body to open up and support itself properly. In a 2019 Harvard School of Public Health study, researchers found that men who could complete more than 40 push-ups had a 96% lower risk of cardiovascular events compared to those who could do fewer than 10. 96%. Think about that. A simple body weight movement that costs nothing, takes minutes a day, and outperforms some medications in predicting heart health. That's not fitness, that's preventive medicine. And if you're thinking, I can't do a full push-up, no problem. Start with wall push-ups, standing, hands on a wall, leaning in and out. Then progress to knee push-ups. Eventually, work your way down to the floor. The magic isn't in doing them perfectly, it's in doing them regularly. Every rep sends a message to your body, we still need this muscle, don't let it go. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Both squats and push-ups trigger what's called mechanotransduction, the process by which physical force is converted into chemical signals that tell your cells to grow. When you challenge your muscles, you create tiny amounts of stress at the cellular level. Your body responds by releasing anabolic hormones, activating satellite cells, and building stronger muscle fibers. In other words, exercise is not just movement, it's molecular communication. Add to that the metabolic benefit. Each squat and push-up session improves glucose uptake in your muscles, stabilizes insulin, and increases your resting metabolic rate. Translation, your muscles become sponges for sugar and fat. You burn more calories even while you sleep. That's why these two movements are a secret weapon not just against sarcopenia, but against obesity, diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, the unholy trinity of modern aging. And you can do all of it in the time it takes to scroll through your phone. 5 to 10 minutes, 3 times a week. No treadmill, no gym, no excuses. The most advanced piece of fitness equipment is your own body, and it's available 24/7. So the next time you think you're too busy or too tired, remember this: 2 exercises stand between you and a future of weakness and decline. 2 movements that have stood the test of science, time, and evolution. The squat to keep you grounded. The push-up to keep you lifted. They're simple, effective, and profoundly human. Because in the end, fighting sarcopenia isn't about chasing youth. It's about preserving capability. It's about telling your body that you still have things to lift, places to go, and people to hug. And that's the kind of medicine no pill will ever replace. Let me start with a simple statement that might sound controversial, but it's pure science. Your muscles are not just for movement. They are your body's largest metabolic organ. Yes, bigger than your liver, more active than your fat tissue, and arguably more important than your pancreas when it comes to blood sugar regulation. We tend to think of muscles as dumb tissue, the stuff bodybuilders flex in the mirror, but in reality, muscles are chemical factories, constantly producing and responding to molecular signals that determine how efficiently your body burns energy, stores fat, and fights disease. Lose muscle, and your metabolism starts to fall apart. It's that simple. Here's how it works. When you eat, your body converts carbohydrates into glucose, sugar in your bloodstream. That sugar needs to go somewhere or it becomes toxic. Insulin, the hormone made by your pancreas, acts like a key that unlocks your cells to let glucose in. Now, where does most of that glucose go into your muscles. In fact, skeletal muscle accounts for about 80% of glucose uptake in healthy individuals. That means your muscles are the primary sink for blood sugar. They're your first line of defense against insulin resistance, diabetes, and metabolic disease. But when you lose muscle mass through aging, inactivity, or poor diet, there's simply less tissue to soak up that glucose. The sugar stays in your bloodstream longer, your insulin levels rise, and your body starts storing the excess energy as fat. This is the beginning of the downward spiral: insulin resistance, weight gain, inflammation, fatigue, and eventually type 2 diabetes. All because the very organ designed to manage your blood sugar, your muscle, has been neglected. Now, let's go deeper. Your muscles are also an endocrine organ. When they contract, they release special signaling molecules called myokinase. Think of them as text messages your muscles send to the rest of your body. These myokinase talk to your brain, liver, and fat cells, regulating everything from appetite to inflammation. One of the most studied is irisin, which is released during resistance exercise. Irisin helps convert white fat, the kind that stores energy, into brown fat, the kind that burns it. It literally transforms your fat tissue into a calorie-burning machine. So when you build muscle, you're not just getting stronger, you're reprogramming your metabolism at the cellular level. And let's not forget mitochondria, those tiny power plants inside your cells. Muscles are loaded with them. The more muscle you have, the more mitochondria you have. The more mitochondria you have, the better your body becomes at producing clean energy and burning fuel efficiently. But when you lose muscle, your mitochondrial density drops, leading to sluggish metabolism, fatigue, and a loss of metabolic flexibility. Your body's ability to switch between burning fat and sugar. In essence, weak muscles mean weak energy systems. There's also the inflammation connection. Chronic inflammation is the common denominator behind most modern diseases: heart disease, Alzheimer's, cancer, you name it. And here's the kicker. Inactive muscles produce inflammatory cytokines, while active, strong muscles produce anti-inflammatory movement. Is literally an anti-inflammatory drug. It turns off the molecular pathways that drive disease and turns on the ones that promote healing. This is why people who maintain muscle mass not only live longer but live better, with fewer aches, less fatigue, sharper minds, and lower disease risk. The data are overwhelming. A study from the Mayo Clinic proceedings followed over 6,000 adults for more than a decade. Those with higher muscle mass had significantly lower rates of metabolic syndrome. A cluster of conditions including high blood pressure, high blood sugar, and excess belly fat. Another study published in Diabetologia found that for every 10% increase in muscle mass, the risk of developing type 2 diabetes dropped by 12%. You don't get that kind of result from medication, you get it from movement. Here's the part most people miss. Muscle isn't just about metabolism when you're young. It's about metabolic resilience as you age. Think of it as your body's savings account. Every bit of muscle you build is stored metabolic wealth, something you can draw on when illness, injury, or stress hits. Lose muscle, and your metabolic safety net disappears. That's why older adults with more muscle recover faster from surgery, resist infections better, and maintain brain function longer. Muscle doesn't just move you, it protects you. Now you might be wondering, okay, so what do I do about it? The prescription is simple, though not always easy. Move often, lift something heavy, and feed your muscles properly. Resistance training 2 or 3 times per week is enough to stimulate the biochemical machinery that keeps your metabolism humming. Pair that with adequate protein, about 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight, and you give your muscles the raw materials they need to grow and repair. This isn't bodybuilding, it's biology. So the next time someone tells you to focus on losing weight, tell them they've got it backwards. Don't lose, build muscle. And the fat loss, energy, and health will follow naturally. Because when your muscles are healthy, your metabolism is healthy. And when your metabolism is healthy, your entire body thrives. At the end of the day, muscle is more than tissue. It's your metabolic currency, your anti-aging shield, your lifelong ally. Protect it, and it will protect you. Because in the grand equation of health, muscle isn't optional. It's the engine that keeps everything else running. Let's get something straight. Health doesn't have to be complicated. We've been conditioned to believe that it takes fancy gyms, personal trainers, supplements, or the latest gadget to stay fit. The fitness industry thrives on confusion. If you think it's too complex to do alone, you'll pay someone to do it for you. But here's the truth. Your body was designed to thrive on simplicity. It doesn't care about trends or apps. It responds to the same fundamental biological principles it always has: stress, recovery, and adaptation. The science is clear. The simplest movements performed consistently outperform the most elaborate workout plans when it comes to building muscle and defeating sarcopenia. Now, I'm a scientist by training, and one thing I've learned from decades of research is this: complex systems fail. Simple systems endure. The human body is no exception. When researchers examine what truly keeps people strong and metabolically healthy, it's not 90-minute gym sessions or high-tech interventions. It's short, frequent bouts of movement that engage large muscle groups: squats, push-ups, planks, resistance bands, even carrying groceries up the stairs. These low-barrier, repeatable actions stimulate muscle growth and maintain functional strength far better than sporadic big efforts. And that's the key. Consistency trumps intensity. The science backs this up again and again. In one study from the Journal of Applied Physiology, participants who performed just 15 minutes of resistance exercise 3 times a week saw the same muscle gains as those who did double the volume once per week. Why? Because muscle adaptation thrives on repetition, not exhaustion. Your body doesn't need to be destroyed to grow stronger. It just needs to be reminded regularly that strength still matters. We love to overcomplicate things because complexity feels like progress. People chase the next miracle machine, protein shake, or biohack, but you can't outsmart biology. You don't need to trick your body. You need to work with it. Every time you push against gravity, every time you challenge your muscles to lift, pull, or stabilize, you're sending a biochemical message to your cells. Stay alive. Stay useful. That's it. That's the formula. It's elegant, efficient, and free. Here's another truth that might surprise you. Your muscles don't know the difference between lifting a dumbbell, a grocery bag, or your own body weight. They only respond to tension. Mechanical stress is the universal signal for growth. When you strip away the noise, all that matters is resistance and effort. You can get a world-class strength stimulus in your living room, using nothing but your body and a floor. Science calls it minimal effective dose, the smallest amount of effort that produces the maximum result. And for fighting sarcopenia, that dose is astonishingly small. Take, for instance, a 2020 study in the European Journal of Sports Science. Researchers found that older adults who performed bodyweight squats and wall push-ups 3 times a week for just 20 minutes experienced significant increases in lean muscle mass and functional mobility without stepping foot in a gym. No weights, no machines, no excuses. That's not wishful thinking. That's evidence-based reality. The beauty of simplicity is that it's sustainable. Complicated programs demand motivation. Simple ones build momentum. The simpler the habit, the harder it is to break 10 squats, while the coffee brews 10 push-ups before bed. A minute-long plank after brushing your teeth. These micro movements add up, not just physically, but metabolically. Every contraction sends blood rushing through your muscles, improving circulation, oxygenation, and nutrient delivery. You're not just maintaining muscle, you're rejuvenating your biology one small action at a time. And let's not forget the mental side. Complicated routines lead to decision fatigue. The more choices you have to make, the less likely you are to stick with it. Simplicity eliminates that friction. There's no planning, no overthinking, just action. You don't need to find time for a simple habit. It fits seamlessly into the life you already have. That's why the people who age best aren't necessarily gym goers, they're movers. They bend, lift, stretch, carry, and play. They don't call it exercise, they call it living. So, where does science back come into this? Science tells us that muscle growth and preservation depend on three things: mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and recovery. You don't need machines to achieve those. You can get mechanical tension from your own body weight. You can create metabolic stress by doing enough reps to feel the burn. And you can recover by sleeping, hydrating, and eating well. That's it. 3 biological levers, all available without a single membership card. What's powerful about simplicity is that it removes excuses. Anyone, anywhere, at any age can start today. The elderly woman who struggles to rise from a chair, that's her squat. The middle-aged man who leans on the kitchen counter, that's his push-up.